Okay, so we spend a massive part of our lives at work, right? But have you ever really stopped to think about how your job, your day-to-day grind, might be affecting a part of your body you probably don't think about? Well, not until it starts yelling for your attention. Yeah, I'm talking about your bladder. Today, we're going to flip the script on incontinence and start treating it not as some personal secret, but as a really critical workplace health issue.
Here's the game plan. First, we'll look at how your job actually impacts your bladder health. Then, we'll uncover the hidden costs and the stigma that goes with it. After that, we'll jump into some practical things you can do to take back control. And finally, we'll talk about how we can all work to change the conversation around this.
All right, let's dive into part 1. How on earth does your 9 to 5 connect to your urinary health? You know, the link is probably a lot more direct than you think.
So let's just get right to it and ask the big question: is your job harming your bladder? For more and more of us, the answer is yeah. And honestly, a big piece of the puzzle might be where you are sitting this very second.
So get this. A recent survey of over 2,000 people working from home found some really eye-opening trends. Look at this chart. Almost half, 43%, said they had to use the bathroom more often. And you can see the likely culprits right there. A whopping 74% said they're sitting for way longer, and 41% are exercising less. It turns out the convenience of working from home has this unexpected side effect.
So what is actually going on in your body? Well, it's pretty much just basic physics. When you sit for hours on end, especially if you're kind of slouching over your keyboard, you're putting this constant downward pressure on your pelvic floor. Think of those muscles as a sort of supportive hammock for your bladder, and over time, all that pressure can weaken them, and that leads to leaks or that nagging, constant urge to go.
But hey, this is not just a problem for people working at desks. Not at all. Think about teachers or nurses who literally can't just leave a classroom or a patient to take a break. Or what about movers and construction workers who put so much strain on their core with all that heavy lifting? The risks are everywhere, from standing all day in retail to the constant vibration that equipment operators and truck drivers feel. It all adds up, irritating the bladder and weakening that pelvic floor.
Okay, so all of this brings us to the second part of our story. The so what? I mean, what's the big deal? Well, this goes way beyond just physical discomfort. We're talking about very real financial, social, and psychological costs that are almost always kept hidden.
This leads to a really tough concept called the diaper gap, and it is a genuine health crisis. It's that awful situation where people have to choose between buying the incontinence supplies they need and paying for other absolute essentials, like food for their family or their rent. I mean, it's just an impossible choice to have to make.
And that financial squeeze, wow. It takes a massive mental toll. A study of people stuck in this diaper gap found that almost 40% reported feeling more stress and anxiety. You can also see the real impact it has, leading to depression and deep feelings of shame. These aren't just numbers on a chart. This is a heavy, heavy emotional burden.
And the consequences just spiral outwards from there. To try and save money, someone might reuse products, which can lead to painful skin problems and urinary tract infections. Socially, the constant fear of having an accident can make people just isolate themselves. And professionally, it can mean missing days of work, losing out on income, which, of course, just makes that diaper gap even wider. It becomes a really vicious cycle.
Okay, that was a little heavy, but we've laid out the problem. And now we get to the most important part, the now what. This section is all about empowerment, because there are totally concrete, practical things you can do to protect your bladder health, starting right now at your desk.
First up, let's just rethink the way we sit. It can be so simple. A great rule of thumb is to stand up for about 10 minutes for every 45 minutes you sit. Seriously, just set a timer on your phone. When you are sitting, really try to focus on good posture. Get your shoulders back, put your feet flat on the floor. And even then, just try to shift around in your seat every half hour or so to move that pressure around. You can also bladder-proof your workspace. Just look at the difference here. Instead of that standard office chair, maybe think about an ergonomic one or even a stability ball to help engage your core muscles. And here's a really clever trick. Purposely place things you use all the time, like your water bottle or the stapler, just out arm's reach. It's a little thing, but it forces you to get up and move throughout the day.
And for managing this in any office environment, a few strategies can be total game changers. Being prepared with a little emergency bag gives you so much peace of mind.
It's also important to know your rights. The ADA might offer you protections. Now here's a surprising one. Stay hydrated. I know it sounds backward, but being dehydrated makes your urine more concentrated, and that actually irritates your bladder more. And finally, try to break that habit of going to the bathroom just in case. This can actually help retrain your bladder over time.
Okay, so these individual actions are powerful. They really are. But to create real, lasting change, we have to shift the entire culture. So this last section is all about moving from a silent struggle to having open conversations and advocating for change.
I absolutely love this quote from Jessie S., a patient advocacy expert. It just flips the whole narrative on its head. Using protective products, that's not a sign of failure. It is an act of self-care. It's about taking control of the situation, cutting down on worry, and letting you stay focused and responsible at your job.
But here's the reality check. The silence is deafening. Look at this number. Only 12% of people dealing with incontinence have ever talked about it with their boss. And I get it, that conversation can feel incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible. But it's often the only way to get accommodations you might be entitled to, like having more flexible breaks. You can't protect your rights if you don't speak up.
So all of this leaves us with a really big question to think about. What does a truly healthy workplace look like? It's got to be about more than just fancy chairs and standing desks, right? It's a place where conversations about our health, all aspects of our health, are met with empathy, not embarrassment. It's an environment where every single employee feels they have the support and the flexibility they need to be both healthy and productive. Now that's something worth working towards.